All right, I'm gonna start with an introduction. Hello, Frisco. I'm Sibakanti, the founder of the Frisco Pollen-Free Initiative, and today I'm joined by Tom Ogren. Mr. Ogren is a horticulturist and allergy researcher best known for developing the Ogren Plant Allergy Scale, which ranks plants based on their potential to cause allergies. With a master's in agriculture, Ogren coined the term botanical sexism to describe the urban planting of male plants that contribute to higher pollen levels. His work aims to create allergy-friendly environments through strategic planting and urban planning. He is the author of several influential books, including Allergy-Free Gardening and The Allergy-Fighting Garden. So, Mr. Ogren, to give the audience a bit of information on your background, could you try to describe your background and what drew you to research pollen allergies and urban forestry?
Yeah, I'm 77 years old. I live in California. I've traveled all around the world, all across the United States. Uh, I have a master's degree in agriculture and horticulture, and all of my graduate work was done on allergy research and trees. And my my reason for getting into this in the first place was my wife. Uh, my wife's name is Yvonne, and we've been married for, oh Lord, 58 years. Same wife, a great wife. But Yvonne has bad allergies and bad asthma, and she's had it since I met her when she was only 15 years old when we met. I was 17, and so because I was in horticulture and because I did landscaping jobs myself, uh, it was sort of a natural morph because we bought a house at one point, oh, 35, 40 years ago now. And I thought, well, it would be really cool if I could change the landscape at this house so that not one thing in the yard would make my wife's allergies worse. And with my wife, when her allergies got really bad, that was often when she would have an asthma attack. And the asthma was scary. There were a number of times early on when we were first married where I thought she would die from asthma.
Wow.
Simply couldn't breathe. But I was teaching horticulture in a prison, and I got together with my students, and we had a large garden. I said, let's go out in the garden and let's just pick different flowers, and we'll pass it around. Everybody in the class take a sniff of it. I'll do it. I didn't make anybody, but everybody said fine. And then we'll write down, see what happens. And so the first couple flowers were like dianthus and petunias, pansies. Nothing happened. Everybody sniffed them. Nothing happened. And then we did a red bottle brush plant. And the second guy that sniffed it was a big, powerful guy, too. He sneezed so hard he almost fell down. Everybody thought that was pretty funny. But by the time we passed that plant around, more than a third of my class was sneezing out of control. And that was on a Monday. And some of these guys were still sneezing by Friday. And immediately I knew I was on to something. So I I went to libraries and see if I could find a book on allergy-free gardening, and there wasn't any such thing. And I went to university libraries to see if anybody had done any research on allergy-friendly landscapes or anything like that. And I remember at one point, librarian would laugh at me, and I said, "Well, what's so funny?" And she said, "Well, it's the gardens that cause the allergies." But by then I had done the sniff test, you see. I said, "Yeah, but a garden is made up of many different types of plants. And I already know that some will cause allergies and some will not. And I want to know the difference." And
Mhm.
she said, "Oh, that's interesting." Well, that was the very beginning of it. And I was working on this, oh, 5, 6 years at least. And people started to find that I was doing this work. And they were asking me to give talks, and I wanted, in those days before computers and PowerPoint, and so everything was done with slide presentations. So I got a good camera and I started to take pictures of, like, one of the first things, like ash trees. I knew that the ash pollen would cause allergies. I knew that one tree was male and one was female. So I tried to take a picture of the female flowers, and that was, well, first I tried to get the male, and that was no problem. There were like, 7, 8 thousand male ash trees in my town of San Luis Obispo.
Mhm.
But when I tried to find any females, I couldn't find any.
Okay.
And I thought, well, that was odd. And so then I did the junipers. With the junipers, it wasn't as bad as the ash, but almost the same thing. Probably more than 99 out of 100 junipers that I saw in the landscapes were male, and almost none were female. And I thought, well, this is pretty odd. And then I started to see the same thing in other cities. And eventually I came to realize that what was happening was a male tree doesn't produce any seeds or pods. So if you have a male maple tree and you plant it near the sidewalk, it never drops any seeds on the sidewalk. And so everybody thinks that's great because it's, quote, clean.
Mhm.
But it's not clean. It's not clean at all. It's actually pretty dirty because what the male produces is pollen, and lots of pollen. And so eventually I found that this phenomena, which came to be called botanical sexism,
Mhm.
this phenomena is prevalent in almost every city in the world. And it's different species, but it's the same concept. If they can plant male, then they won't have any messy seeds. And because of that, and it's not the only reason, but big part of it is because of that, the allergy rates keep going worse, up and up and up, and getting worse and worse. And I myself, I never had an allergy myself until I was 75 years old. Now, for the last couple of years, I've had allergies. And as soon as I got ready to do this interview, my nose started running from pollen from I'm at my daughter's house. I can see the tree. It's a big male pepper tree, and that sucker's in full bloom right now, and I'm getting the pollen. And pepper trees are related to, they're in the cashew family, and they're related to poison oak and poison ivy and sumacs and other things, mangoes and cashews. And I'm allergic to mangoes and to poison ivy and poison oak. And so that pepper tree is setting me off right now as we're talking. But uh anyhow, that's how I got into it, Sita.
Mhm. So, with that being said, you touched on a lot of things, but one of the big things you were talking about was botanical sexism, where they focus on planting
Yeah,
male plants over female plants. And I was just
yes.
wondering, in all your years of experience, what have been some effective strategies for reducing pollen levels in cities?
Well, there are a number of cities in the United States who have put in pollen control ordinances. For example, the city of Las Vegas and the city of Albuquerque, New Mexico, and a number of other ones, Tucson, Arizona, and so on. They're all Western cities, none in Texas. And basically, all they did was outlaw the planting of any more male clones of certain species. And that was a good place to start. But uh, the problem was that there were already so many males in the landscape that they grandfathered in. For example, in Las Vegas, they have, you know what a mulberry tree is?
Yes, sir.
Well, anyhow, a big tree and nice shade tree, and their males are females, and the females make mulberries, which I've got a couple female mulberries, and I eat the mulberries every day. In fact, they're getting ripe right now, and I think they're pretty good. But uh, when they plant them in the cities, they plant the males, and they get big and they produce a ton of pollen. And so, even though they outlawed planting any new ones, they'd already planted over 250,000 of these males in Las Vegas. And so, every year in spring, when those things bloom, anybody with allergies in Las Vegas has got terrible allergies, and it goes on for months. Uh, Now, it's possible with some of those trees to cut them back and graft them. You can graft a male tree to female wood and turn it into a female tree if you know what you're doing. Basically, give the tree a sex change. It sounds crazy, but uh, another book I wrote years ago, which sold quite a bit, was Safe Sex in the Garden, because people don't think that plants have sex, but pretty much everything alive has sex, including the plants. And uh, it's sex that's involved. Safe sex would mean not to have a lot of that male pollen floating around all the time in your nose, you know. But that would be the first strategy would be to stop planting any more males. There's an old saying: if you find yourself in a deep hole, stop digging. All right, you understand? And it's like we're in that hole right now, but we keep digging it deeper and deeper and deeper. And if we do that, we'll never get out of the hole. The hole will just get worse. So for starters, we need to stop planting those. And second thing, we need to start planting a lot more female plants, particularly female trees. For example, and it's not just trees; it's the whole landscape. For in Texas, there's a wonderful plant called Texas bluegrass, and it's native to Texas. And I've got some at my yard, and it's separate sex. And so one plant is a male, another one is a female. Now, the males produce pollen that causes allergies, grass pollen allergies. But here's the thing: the female plants, they spread through the roots. So if you plant only females and you water it and fertilize it, you can have a whole lawn or whole pasture of Texas bluegrass that's all female. I'd love to see God, that'd be so cool. All the lawns at all the schools in Texas to be converted to female Texas bluegrass. Would that be awesome?
Mhm.
Uh, but it's totally doable if people knew about it, and and if if they need advice, I'm always there for people. I give away so much free advice, it's amazing. But it's I'm trying to make the world a better place.
Absolutely.
Sort of what you're trying to do yourself, which to me is always something worth doing. It's uh, now I would say also, global warming makes allergies worse. If we keep relying just on gas and diesel powered cars and trucks and so on, the problem will keep getting worse. If we keep burning more coal and stuff like that, the problem will get worse. And one of the things that the global warming does is it increases carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide, right now, the carbon dioxide levels in the world are at the highest ever recorded in human existence. Now, carbon dioxide acts as like a growth hormone for plants, and in particular, it affects flowering. So, if we plant thousands of male plants, grasses, trees, you name it, vines, and then we increase the carbon dioxide level, we make them produce much more pollen. There have been tests, you can increase pollen 4 times just by adding carbon dioxide. And that's happening anyhow. So as we're combating climate change, which is perfectly real, we need to combat this whole business of botanical sexism, or the climate change is going to make the allergies worse and worse and worse. And at a certain point, everybody in the whole United States will have allergies. And that's not a good idea. I mean, people don't, you said you've got allergies yourself. It's a pain. It's something you don't need. Also, something worth knowing is on high pollen count days, deaths from all causes, any type, they rise rather dramatically. Deaths from heart attacks and so on go up 10, 20%. Uh, I have a professor, head of the sociology department at a big university in the East Coast that's doing some work right now, been communicating with me and working with the local police because she's found a link, it looks like, to high pollen counts causing an increase in homicides. Now, if you consider that pollen is a male expression of a plant, and pollen is very high in the hormone testosterone, which is the male hormone, and you jack up levels of testosterone, uh, well, it's men that do so many of the craziest things. It's us guys do. I'm not condemning all of the men for crying out loud, but I'm just saying that there appears to be a link between jacking up the pollen counts, jacking up testosterone, and an increase in homicides, and hence the interest of the police chief in that city in it. But there are many, many reasons why this makes sense, and it's I consider it particularly for you, it's a noble thing to try to make a difference.
Yeah.
And you're young, but you're social media savvy, I expect, and computer savvy. Yeah, I mean, I'm the old guard. I I had hard enough time setting up a Zoom meeting with you. uh,
So on that
what?
note,
Yeah.
so we're running out of time. We only have, I think,
Okay.
8 minutes left.
Okay.
So I'm just gonna ask a couple more questions. One of the big things that I'm really curious about, you mentioned first what governments can do in terms of trying to shift between
Yeah.
plants to female plants, as well as
Right.
looking at school zone areas. And I was
Yes.
just wondering if you had any possible case studies or cities that have already tried to implement those things and how that's worked out for them.
Uh, I don't have any studies like that, but there's a big interest in this in Spain and Italy, and I can send you names of the professors, botany professors that are doing a lot of work on this.
Mhm.
Uh, I'm just an independent.
Okay.
I'm just myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm a retired teacher and horticulture teacher, but I don't have any funding. I don't, you know, I have my own research, my own writing, and I do what I can do, but I don't have the wherewithal to do big studies. But those people might know about it and probably would. Uh, but uh, one thing, there are pollen counts being done in many places around the world on any given day,
Mhm.
and so they can see the increase in pollen levels. It's not theoretical; it's actually happening. And there's tons of data uh, about, I mean, if you just track the sales of allergy medicines or something, you would just see it go up, up, up.
Yeah.
It's a big problem and it needs to be addressed.
Yeah. So with that being said, one of my final questions for you is if there's a key message you can send out to policymakers and the public to understand the importance of addressing botanical sexism and high pollen counts, what would it be?
It would be, what do they say? Think globally, act locally. I would say concentrate on what you can do for your own town first. A great place would be to make elementary schools as allergy-free as possible. Many allergists have told me that if they can control the allergies of young kids, then they can keep them from developing asthma. And asthma kills a lot of people every year. And allergies just make a lot of people miserable, but they contribute to the asthma and all these these COPD, all kinds of things, like I said. But I would say do little steps. Do one little elementary school at a time or something, one flower bed at a time. Uh, everything, anytime we plant anything that's allergy friendly, we are making our own environment a little bit better. So don't worry about trying to save the whole world. Just save a little part of it yourself. Concentrate and do it just for the good of your friends and your neighbors, the people that live where you do. That'd be my message.
All right. Well, Mr. Ogren, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today, and have a wonderful evening.
Lovely talking to you, Sita.